Have you ever wondered why certain women linger in the minds of men for years, even decades? Not because of their beauty, not because of their words, but because of something far deeper, something they themselves could never fully define. There are women who become obsessions not because they offer themselves freely, but precisely because they don't. Not because they seek attention, but because they carry within them something untouchable, enigmatic, ancient. A rhythm that doesn't align with the ordinary world. A gaze that speaks in riddles. A presence that both calms and unsettles. Carl Jung would call this the manifestation of the anima, the feminine imprint embedded deep in the male unconscious. And when a man comes into contact with a woman who embodies this energy, he feels it not in his mind, but in his soul. He may not know why. He cannot stop thinking of her, why her voice stays in his ears long after she's left the room, or why her stillness, her silence unravels him more than any argument ever could. These feminine mysteries are not logical. They are not teachable. They are felt. They are known in the bones and the blood, in the quiet hunger that arises not from the body, but from the psyche, from that dark and luminous place where desire and fear dance in eternal tension. A woman who lives from her depths unsettles the man who has only lived on the surface. She becomes both the lighthouse and the storm. She awakens something sacred and inconvenient in him, something he may not yet have the maturity to face. And still he returns in thought. Again and again. He obsesses not because she gives him what he wants, but because she mirrors what he lacks. She moves with a rhythm that refuses to sync with his expectations. She disappears just when he reaches for her. She speaks in layers. She listens with her whole being. She does not perform. She reveals. And yet not all at once. Men trained to conquer feel disarmed in her presence. For she is not a prize to be won, she is a portal to be crossed. But only if one dares to surrender ego, to descend from the pedestal of logic, and to step into the waters of the unknown. It is her mystery that arrests him. But it is also her refusal to be figured out that tortures him. He wants her to make sense. He wants her emotions to be predictable, her affections to be earned by formula. But a true feminine being is not governed by formulas. She is governed by flow, by intuition, by a sacred inner knowing that cannot be intellectualized. This is the first truth he cannot grasp, her intuition. Not the shallow kind paraded in pop culture, but the primal cellular wisdom that lives beneath her words. The intuition that senses a lie before it's spoken. That detects subtle shifts in tone and silence and breath. The kind of knowing that frightens the man who still hides from himself, for she sees what he tries to bury. Then comes her emotional depth. Not the volatility he accuses her of, but the complexity he cannot navigate. He calls her too much because she refuses to be shallow. He accuses her of being sensitive while she is simply aware. Emotion is her language, not her weakness. She doesn't react, she feels. She doesn't manipulate, she responds. And in her emotional honesty, she exposes how emotionally numb he has become. And this terrifies him. Because to truly understand her, he would have to meet his own emotional world. Not just anger and desire, but grief, tenderness, longing, vulnerability. All the parts of himself he once shoved into silence. She beckons them forth not to shame him, but to love him. But if he is not ready, he will mistake her invitation for attack. The feminine mystery is not about confusion. It is about depth. It is the mystery of the ocean, not because it hides things, but because it contains everything. She is not meant to be solved. She is meant to be witnessed, to be honored, to be met not with strategy but with soul. And so the man obsesses. Not with her body, not even with her mind, but with her effect. The way she made him feel without ever touching him. The way she saw through his masks with one glance. The way her detachment made him question his worth. The way her presence made him feel things he spent years avoiding. She is not a puzzle. She is not a lesson. She is a force. And unless a man is willing to become more than just a seeker of pleasure, unless he is willing to become a seeker of truth, she will remain to him a riddle that haunts a dream, that aches a woman who slips through his fingers like smoke and stays in his soul like fire. The man who does not understand the feminine mysteries will find himself forever chasing them, but never truly capturing them. For these mysteries are not meant to be captured. They are not trophies to be held or conquered. They are forces that cannot be tamed, for their power comes from their very elusiveness. There is a depth to the feminine that he cannot measure with his mind nor define with his logic. It is the kind of depth that causes him to feel small, not because she diminishes him, but because her being reminds him of what he is not yet. She is not simply a woman. She is the archetype of all women, the mother, the lover, the muse, the sovereign. And she embodies something the man has not yet embraced, the wholeness of self. The second mystery is the way she holds her own sovereignty, a sovereignty not of domination, but of complete and unapologetic self-possession. She is not beholden to anyone. She does not seek validation from him or anyone else. She is whole in herself, and her autonomy is both her strength and her mystery. For a man who is not grounded in his own masculinity, this is an enigma that he cannot understand. He may try to win her, but she cannot be won. Not in the way he thinks. She is not a conquest. She does not fit into the neat boxes of the ego-driven male psyche. She is not there to fulfill his desires on his terms, but to challenge him to meet her on equal ground. She does not need him to complete her, she is already complete. And this is a form of power that the man can neither fathom nor replicate. His need to possess and to control becomes his weakness in her presence. This power of sovereignty does not come from arrogance, but from the deep knowing of her own worth. She knows she is worthy, and therefore she does not need anyone to prove it to her. She does not tolerate disrespect, nor does she seek approval. She does not play games. She simply is. And it is this primal certainty in her own being that confounds him. It is as though she is an ancient queen crowned by life itself, and he, the humble knight, is left struggling to understand how he fits into her vast realm. But the feminine mystery does not stop there. Another mystery she embodies is the art of surrender. This is the paradox that confounds many men. For while she holds her sovereignty, she also knows when to yield, when to soften, when to open herself fully. The woman who knows how to surrender is not weak. She is deeply attuned to the natural flow of life, to the ebbs and tides that guide the universe. Her surrender is a dance not of submission but of trust. It is a trust in herself, in her intuition, and in the greater forces at play. But this surrender, this graceful letting go, is not something she does easily, and it is never done out of necessity. She surrenders only to what is worthy of her, to what meets her at her level. This becomes the third mystery. The man who tries to force himself into her world without first understanding his own will never earned this surrender. He must first surrender his ego, his need for validation, his fear of being seen for what he truly is. The man who doesn't understand this surrenders to her, only to find himself lost in a dance he cannot lead. The man who does understand, who has undergone the crucible of self-awareness, who has faced his own shadow, and who has learned to embrace his vulnerability, will find in her not just a woman, but a mirror of his own potential. She will reveal to him the parts of himself he has long buried, the parts of himself that have been ignored or rejected. And in this revelation, he will be forced to choose to face his truth or remain in the safety of his illusions. Her surrender is not weakness. It is the invitation to mutual transformation. And when a man is ready to meet her on that level, he enters into a partnership with her not of dominance and submission, but of equal creation. For her mystery is not in her need to be saved, but in her willingness to let the two of them create something greater than either could alone. But even with all this, there is yet another mystery that men obsess over, but never quite understand her depth of empathy. A woman who has learned to truly feel, to listen without judgment, to see without bias, to love without limitation, holds a power that the ego-driven man simply cannot fathom. For he is taught to see through the lens of logic, to prioritize his goals, to cut away what does not serve him. But she sees the connections. She feels the pain behind the mask. She understands the subtle energies in the room that he misses. Her empathy is not to be mistaken for weakness or codependence. It is not that she absorbs his energy or takes on his emotional burdens. No, her empathy is the gift of seeing him truly, deeply, and without reservation. She understands his wounds, but she does not heal them by fixing him. She heals them by seeing them, by validating them, and by offering her presence without attachment to outcome. This empathy, this deep seeing, forces the man to confront his own truths. For how can he hide when she knows the secrets he hasn't spoken? How can he pretend when she already sees the parts of him that are broken? She is not here to save him, nor does she expect to be saved. She is here to show him what he is capable of, but only if he is willing to meet her gaze without flinching. And this is where the obsession lies. The man who is drawn to her is not just drawn to her beauty or her strength. He is drawn to the mystery of the feminine soul, the depths of her knowing that he cannot understand with his mind. He is drawn to the truth. She embodies a truth that he has never dared to fully embrace within himself. The obsession deepens, and the man, though lost in her mystery, begins to feel a deep, often unspoken desire to possess her. But the more he tries to pin her down, the more elusive she becomes. The more he seeks to understand her through the narrow lens of his rational mind, the more he is swept into the sea of her complexity. He may try to categorize her, to map her emotions, to control her responses, but this is where the feminine mystery transcends all logic. She cannot be understood by linear thought, nor can she be tamed by force. The next feminine mystery that ensnares him is her independence. Not the independence of the woman who seeks to isolate herself, but the sovereignty of the woman who is whole in herself, whose life does not revolve around anyone else, whose happiness is not contingent on the validation of others. This independence is not a rejection of him, but rather an invitation to meet her at the level of equality of freedom. It is the paradox of a woman who stands in her own power, not to dominate or exclude, but to be whole. She is not simply defined by her relationship to him, nor does she see him as the answer to her happiness. She has learned to embrace her own wholeness. Her needs are met by the fullness of her own being, and when she loves, she does not do so because she needs to be loved. She loves because it is her nature to do so. And this autonomy becomes one of the most difficult things for a man to understand. For a man who has been conditioned by a culture of performance, of conquest, of ownership, her independence is a mystery. He wants to feel needed, to feel wanted. He wants to be the source of her happiness. But this woman, she does not need him to complete her. She is not seeking someone to fix her, someone to fill the gaps in her life. She is complete on her own. And yet she chooses him. She chooses him not because she cannot live without him, but because she wants to experience life with him, to dance alongside him as two equals, not as one who leads and one who follows. And so, in his obsession with her, he is forced to confront his own dependence. He is confronted with the fact that his sense of worth, his sense of identity, may have been built upon the validation of others, the constant need to prove himself through achievement, through relationships, through success. Her independence forces him to ask himself, what would I be if I did not need her, if I did not need anyone? This is a question that shakes him to his core, for he is not yet ready to face it. He has not yet cultivated the self-worth that comes from within. He has not yet learned to be whole without external validation. And in this realization, the woman's independence becomes both a challenge and a call to growth. She does not force him to change, but her very presence demands that he choose to either remain in the illusion of external validation or to step into the fullness of his own being to create his own sense of wholeness from within. But this is not all. There is another layer to the feminine mystery, one that touches on the very essence of what it means to create. For she is not simply a passive force. The feminine energy is the creative force of the universe, the energy that births, nurtures, destroys, and recreates. The woman who understands this force does not wait for life to come to her. She is the creator of her own destiny. She is not defined by the roles others place on her wife, mother, daughter. She is a creator of herself, a creator of her own world, a creator of new possibilities. This is where the obsession deepens again, because the man is drawn not just to her beauty, her strength, or her independence. He is drawn to her creative energy, to the force that flows through her and makes the world around her come alive. He is drawn to the way she shapes reality with her words, her actions, her very presence. She is not passive in her life. She is an active force that shapes the world according to her will. And the man who meets this woman is not simply meeting a partner. He is meeting a force that demands to be reckoned with. He is meeting a woman who is not afraid to create her own path, to take risks, to step into the unknown. And in her, he sees the potential for his own creative power, a potential that he may have long buried under the weight of societal expectations and self-doubt. Yet there is another mystery, one that may seem contradictory, but is in fact its natural complement, her ability to remain in the present moment. The woman who embodies the deepest feminine energies is able to be present in the moment, fully engaged with life as it unfolds. She does not live in the past, nor does she obsess about the future. She exists in the now, in the flow of life, in the energy of each breath, each glance, each touch. The man who is drawn to her may find this unsettling, for he is often trapped in his own mind, dwelling on past mistakes, projecting fears about the future, constantly seeking control over the uncontrollable. But in the presence of the woman who has mastered the art of presence, he is reminded of the simplicity and profundity of the moment. Her ability to be fully alive, fully engaged in the present, becomes a mirror for him, one that reflects back to him all the ways he has been absent from his own life. Her presence is not a passive stillness. It is an active participation in the flow of existence. She does not try to control what is happening. She allows life to unfold as it will, trusting in the natural rhythm of things. And in her trust, she invites him to trust as well. To let go of the need to control, to plan, to predict. To simply be. And so, as the man faces these mysteries, the sovereignty, the surrender, the independence, the creative force, the presence, he begins to realize that the woman who fascinates him is not just a woman. She is an idea in the deepest sense. She is a living embodiment of energies, truths, and possibilities that he has not yet begun to explore. She is a mystery not to be solved, but to be experienced. The man who becomes captivated by these feminine mysteries is not simply drawn to a woman. He is drawn to a deeper, more profound aspect of himself. The woman who embodies these mysteries represents the untapped realms of his own unconscious, the parts of him he has long ignored or suppressed. Her power lies not in her ability to make him feel good, but in her ability to make him face himself. She becomes the catalyst for his individuation, a term coined by Carl Jung to describe the process of integrating the unconscious with the conscious self, of reconciling the opposing forces within the psyche, of becoming whole. And in the presence of such a woman, he is forced to confront all the parts of himself that he has left unexamined. The fears, the desires, the weaknesses, and the strengths that he has not yet fully understood. She is his mirror, but not the kind that flatters. She is the mirror that reveals his shadow. The fourth feminine mystery is this: the way she awakens his shadow. The shadow is that part of the psyche that contains all the traits, desires, and emotions that we repress because they do not fit with our idealized self-image. It is the dark side of the ego, the part we hide from others and often from ourselves. The woman who embodies the deepest feminine mysteries does not shy away from the shadow. She calls it forth. She reflects it back to him in the way she challenges him, in the way she makes him uncomfortable, in the way she refuses to give him the easy answers. Her presence does not let him hide from himself. And for the man who is not yet ready to face his shadow, this can feel like a betrayal. He may accuse her of being manipulative, difficult, or elusive. He may feel as though she is playing games with him, testing him, even punishing him. But the truth is that she is not doing anything to him. She is merely reflecting back to him the parts of himself that he has yet to integrate, the parts he is too afraid to see, the parts he is too proud to acknowledge. When a man encounters his shadow, it is often in the form of discomfort. It may come through jealousy, frustration, or confusion. He may find himself projecting his insecurities onto her, attributing his fears to her actions. But if he is willing to look within, he will realize that she is not the cause of his discomfort. She is simply triggering the discomfort that already resides within him. And in this she becomes the teacher, the guide who leads him into the very heart of his unconscious. To meet the shadow is not an easy task. It requires courage, humility, and the willingness to face the darkest parts of oneself. But the man who is able to do this will emerge transformed, for he will no longer be at the mercy of his unconscious fears and desires. He will no longer be controlled by the parts of himself that he has repressed. And in this process, he will learn the greatest mystery of all, to embrace the feminine within himself. The fifth mystery is her unpredictability. She does not follow a script. She does not conform to the roles that society has placed on women. She is not a reflection of what he wants her to be. She is an unfolding mystery, constantly evolving, constantly changing. And it is this very unpredictability that fascinates him. It is the thrill of the unknown that keeps him returning to her, seeking to understand what makes her tick, trying to predict her next move, to anticipate her desires. But the truth is, she is not to be predicted. She is not a puzzle to be solved. She is a force to be experienced, to be felt in the moment, to be discovered not through analysis, but through presence. The man who becomes obsessed with understanding her will miss the point entirely. She is not something to be understood with the mind. She is something to be felt with the heart, something to be lived. Her unpredictability is not chaos. It is freedom. It is a refusal to be confined by anyone's expectations. It is a refusal to be tethered by the need to make sense. And in this freedom, she invites him to step into his own liberation, to let go of the need for control, for certainty, for answers. She invites him to trust in the flow of life, to embrace the uncertainty that is inherent in every relationship, in every moment. In her unpredictability, she teaches him that life is not something to be controlled or planned. It is something to be experienced, to be embraced in all its messiness, its uncertainty, its beauty. And this, too, is one of the great mysteries, to let go of the need for certainty and to trust in the unfolding of life as it comes. The final mystery, the one that binds all the others together, is her authenticity. She does not try to be something she is not. She does not conform to the expectations of others. She does not wear masks to fit in, to be loved, or to be accepted. She simply is. She is unapologetically herself in all her complexity, in all her contradictions. And it is this authenticity that draws men to her, for in her presence, they are reminded of their own authenticity, or rather, their lack of it. The man who is drawn to her is not simply seeking a lover. He is seeking a reflection of his own truth. He is seeking someone who is not afraid to show up as they truly are, someone who does not apologize for their existence. And in the presence of such a woman, he is forced to confront the parts of himself that he hides behind masks, the parts of himself that he has kept hidden in order to conform, to fit in, to be accepted. Her authenticity demands that he do the same. She challenges him to strip away the layers of his ego, to reveal himself as he truly is, to be raw, to be real. And this perhaps is the greatest mystery of all, to embrace oneself fully, to live without apology, to show up in the world as the person you are meant to be, not the person others want you to be. For in the end, it is not her mysteries that truly captivate him. It is the invitation to uncover the mysteries within himself. As the man wrestles with these feminine mysteries, he begins to recognize that his obsession with the woman is not just about her, it is about him. She is the mirror that forces him to confront the parts of himself he's avoided, the aspects of his own psyche that he cannot hide from. She reflects back to him not just his desires and fears, but his potential. And the deeper he goes into understanding her, the deeper he is drawn into the search for his own self-knowledge. This is the power of the feminine mysteries. They do not exist to please, to entertain, or to be understood. They exist to challenge, to awaken, and to transform. The woman who embodies these mysteries is not a passive figure in his life. She is a force that shakes him to his core, that invites him to grow, to evolve, and to face the truth of who he is, both the light and the shadow. It is within this space of discomfort, of confrontation with the self, that the man begins to see how deeply he has been driven by his own unconscious desires. Desires that he may not have even fully understood until now. The woman who embodies the feminine mysteries holds up a mirror not just to his desires, but to the parts of him that remain unintegrated, that remain unconscious. And in this reflection, he is given the opportunity to grow. She does not chase after him, nor does she need him to complete her. She stands as her own whole being, and in doing so, she creates a space where he must also confront his own wholeness. She challenges him to become more than he has been. And it is in this challenge, this invitation to evolve, that the man may find himself becoming something more than he ever imagined. It is not her presence alone that awakens him, but the deep, unsettling work that he must do within himself to meet her at her level. It is the work of individuation, the work of shedding the false layers of the ego and embracing the deeper truths of the soul. But this is not a path that is easy. The man who is not yet ready for this kind of growth may retreat, may distance himself from the woman who challenges him. He may feel overwhelmed by the depth of the mystery she represents. And he may seek out women who are more easily understood, more predictable, more controllable. And yet in the quiet of his soul, he will always remember her, the woman who showed him the path to self-discovery, to wholeness, to the truth of his own existence. He may never fully understand her, but he will never forget her. For the woman who embodies the deepest feminine mysteries does not simply walk away from him. Her energy, her presence, her challenge will continue to echo in his life, calling him back to the work he must do, the work of becoming more fully himself. She is not a fleeting moment, not a passing distraction. She is a reminder of the work that waits for him, of the potential he holds within himself that he has yet to realize. And for the man who does embrace this challenge, who does begin to meet her at her level, something extraordinary happens. He begins to experience life differently. He no longer seeks external validation, no longer seeks to control or possess. Instead, he learns to receive life, to flow with it, to live authentically and unapologetically. He learns that true power lies not in domination but in surrender, not in control but in trust. The woman who embodies these mysteries is not a woman to be conquered or won. She is a teacher, a guide, a reflection of the potential within every man to evolve to become more than he has been. And it is in the dance with her, in the ongoing interplay of attraction, challenge, and growth, that the man learns to face his own darkness, to accept his own light, and to move towards his highest self. As the man steps into this journey of self-discovery, he no longer views her through the lens of possession or control. Instead, he sees her as she truly is, a force of nature, a sacred reflection of the unconscious that calls him to his own wholeness. She is not a riddle to be solved, but a doorway to be entered. And in entering that doorway, he finds not just her, but himself. In the end, the greatest mystery of all is not about understanding the woman. It is about understanding himself. For when a man truly understands himself, when he embraces his own shadow, his own desires, his own wounds, he becomes free. Free to love without attachment, free to create without fear, and free to be whole without needing anyone to complete him. The woman who embodies these mysteries does not need to explain herself. She simply is. And in her presence, the man is invited to step into his own truth, his own power, his own authenticity. And when he does, he will realize that the woman who once captivated him, who once haunted him with her mysteries, has not left him at all. She has become a part of him, woven into the very fabric of his soul. Her mysteries have awakened him to his own, and in this awakening, both of their journeys continue intertwined, unbroken, and forever evolving. The woman who knows her worth doesn't chase, she chooses.